club. Everybody's welcome. I want to quickly say, everybody, please give me a thumbs up if you can. Subscribe if you want to see me again. I appreciate all your help, all your support. Share, whatever you want to do. I love it. Thank you. But most of all, gather around. Let's read. Today, we're going to continue Gateway to the Epicureans, as you can see on my green screen background. And this time, this is Letter to Pythocles. Diogenes Laertius, 10.83-116. Here, Epicurus gives the bravura display of possible explanations for various celestial and meteorological phenomena, inventing hypothesis after hypothesis about how atomic interactions might explain weather patterns and astronomical observations, or weather patterns and astronomical observations. My mistake. His idea of multiple explanations hinted at in his previous letter involves resting content with any and all explanations that are not incompatible with the observable phenomena. If they are incompatible, it's called refutation, antimartyresis. Viable explanations only need to be consistent with what can be observed, even if those explanations are not consistent with each other. So, for example, solar eclipses might be caused when the sun is obscured by another body passing in between us and it, occultation. Or else they might be caused by the sun's fire temporarily going out altogether, extinction. Possibly, Epicurus thinks that these speculations are all equally true, even if mutually exclusive, or that it's meaningless to speak of truth and falsehood where no definite knowledge is possible. More likely, though, he thinks that only one explanation is correct in any given instance, but we can't always be sure which one. Sometimes he argues that the same phenomenon can be produced in different ways at different times. The main point is not to go beyond what is warranted by the data. From our present standpoint, at least, we only have so much information to go on, and we shouldn't feign certainty where none is justified. It's enough to put the mind at ease if we can rule out the more fantastical ideas that the general public fret over, especially when they take portents in the sky as harbingers of evidence of some god intervening in human affairs. Beyond that, we will attain serenity if we refrain from endorsing any one physical theory when others can't be conclusively ruled out. Hello, Mia, and welcome. Hello, Kelly Knight, and welcome. And now we begin. Excuse me. Now we begin the letter Epicurus to Pythocles, in which it says, water break first. In which it says, "Greetings. Cleon brought me a letter from you in which you continue to express your goodwill towards me in a manner befitting my own sincere care for you. You were making a plausible effort at committing to memory those arguments that lead most concisely to a life of bliss, to which end you implored me to send you a neatly written summary of my reasoning concerning the heavenly bodies, so that you could memorize it more easily, since, as you say, it is dispersed throughout my other written works in a manner that makes it hard to remember. though you refer to them constantly. I received this request of yours with pleasure. It fills me with equally pleasurable hopes for your future. Hi, athlete, and welcome. Having written everything else required of me, I will produce the summary you asked for, which will be useful for many others as well, especially those who have only just had their first taste of genuine natural science, and those who are wrapped up in some project more demanding than what is entailed in a standard education. Make good use of it, and once you have it memorized, go back over it regularly in detail along with the rest of the things I sent to Herodotus in that brief overview. First of all, remember that just like all other studies, knowledge about celestial bodies has no other purpose, whether we make reference to it in connection with other discussions or consider it in its own right, than peace of mind and secure belief. We cannot bring about the impossible by force, and we should not stick to the same kind of exhaustive study as the other sciences, such as those concerning living things or the resolution of other problems in natural sciences, such as the principle that all things are composed of bodies and that which is fundamentally intangible, or that the foundational elements of things are indivisible, and all such proposals which admit of only the explanation that agrees with the phenomena we experience. In this field, there is a range of accounts about the origin and essence of the celestial bodies that conform with the evidence of our senses. I'm not fake. Excuse you, Uday, and welcome. Gather round and listen with us. For we must not proceed in our study of nature from arbitrary premises and axioms that we ourselves lay down, but rather follow where the observed phenomena lead us. The last thing we need in our lives is baseless and empty ideas. What we need is to live without unnecessary fracas. Fracas, I don't know what that is. Fracas. Does anybody know what that is? Leave it in the comments if you do. So, everything will proceed smoothly as soon as the whole thing has been sorted out according to a range of explanations, each one of which conforms to what has been observed, so that one can put each matter to rest appropriately once it has been properly and convincingly explained. But if one picks and chooses among explanations, though each conforms to the observable phenomena, then clearly he has fallen short of comprehensive study and lapsed into myth. Some of the things we observe down here in our domain furnish indications of what is unfolding in the heavens. I appreciate your comments, but we're gonna keep it polite. Otherwise, I can't let it go into the chat. We can explain how these indications come about, but not the phenomena we actually observe among the heavenly bodies, which may arise in a range of ways. But we should closely analyze each event that presents itself to us and distinguish it from the other events that accompany it, whose origin in a variety of causes is not contradicted by the experience we have in our own sphere. Thank you for the thumbs up. A world is a bounded region of space, containing stars and an earth and all the phenomena comprised therein. It is cut off and distinct from the limitless exterior, and it is contained within either a thin or dense boundary. It is either revolving or stationary, contained within a circle or triangle, or whatever other perimeter. Each of these may be accepted, but none of the phenomena in this world where no boundary can be observed contradicts any shape the boundary might take. It is also possible to grasp that such worlds are limitless in number, and that such a world can come into being both within another world and in the worldscape, which is the name we give to the space between worlds, a largely empty space, though not, as some maintain, an enormous and totally empty void, since certain raw materials do flow from one world or area of the worldscape, or several, causing in the process various conjunctions, transfers, slipstreams, and rearrangements from place to place, little by little, as chance would have it, and a persistent stream of the appropriate particles to the right destination once they attain sufficient stability and development and settle into foundations that can host them, leads to the creation of a new world. Dogonomics, if you want to put something in the chat, you must be polite. For what is required for a world to emerge, it's not simply a heap or a vortex from whose cavity it will grow by necessity, as some think, until it makes contact with another world. Though this is what one so-called natural philosopher claims, it conflicts with the observed phenomena. A sun and a moon and all the rest of the stars did not first form independently and then get absorbed by our world and in all the parts that hold it together. They were all formed and grew in conjunction, along with the earth and the sea, by the gradual accretion of certain spiraling microparticles, whether gaseous or fiery in nature, or both. This is what the evidence of our sciences indicates. Hi, Serenity. Welcome. The size of the sun and the rest of the stars is as large as it seems relative to us. He also says this on Nature, Book 11, arguing that if the size were reduced by the distance, then the brightness would be reduced still more. For there is no other distance more proportional to its size. In itself, however, it may be larger than it looks to us, or slightly smaller, or exactly the same size. We can observe the same effect in fires on earth when we observe them from a distance. Every objection to this proportion of the science can be easily overcome, as I have shown on Nature. It is possible that the rising and setting of the sun, moon, and the rest of the stars occurs when they are successively ignited and extinguished. If the nature of their surroundings in the relevant locations, east and west, is such as to bring that about, none of the observed phenomena contradicts it. But it may also be a consequence of their visible position above the earth, or the passage of another body in front of them. Nothing we can observe contradicts that either. It is not impossible that their motion is caused by the rotation of the whole sky, but it may also be that the sky stands still, while they themselves move along an orbit imposed on them by necessity, since they first rose when the world originally came into being. It is possible that the retrograde motions of the sun and the moon are caused by the slant of the sky itself, which is imposed from time to time. Or they may equally be the result of air resistance, or a shortage of the material necessary to propel them, which is burned off. Alternatively, rotational motion may have been imparted to these stars at the origin of the world, so that they travel a kind of spiral. Not one manifest fact clashes with any such explanation or any other in the same family, if one sticks to what is possible and proceeds from what the relevant details of each explanation that harmonizes with the observed phenomena, and if one refuses to be intimidated by the grovelling controversies of the astrologers. Grovelling controversies. That's funny. Excuse me as I take a water break. An alternate waxing and waning of the moon could be a result of its own motion. It could equally come from the configuration of the surrounding air, or yet again, from its position behind other bodies, or any number of other means which the phenomena furnished by the moon's appearance down here might suggest to us, so long as one doesn't become enamored of one unitary explanation and pronounce the others worthless. Failing to realize what kind of understanding is possible for humans to attain and what kinds are impossible, leading to an aspiration to understand the incomprehensible. Likewise, the moon could shine with its own light, or derive it from the sun. Here on earth, we see that many bodies have their own light. And many derive it from others. And none of the phenomena we observe in the heavens prevents either of these from being the case. If we always bear in mind the various alternative possibilities and hold all the hypotheses and explanations that follow on from the phenomena in our minds at once, rather than digging up others that aren't relevant for no reason other than to tilt the scales in favor of one or the other unitary explanation. The appearance of a face in the moon could be a result of a rearrangement in its parts, or the replacement of other bodies in front of it, or whatever other means could be reasonably inferred from what we observe. When it comes to celestial phenomena, anyone who abandons pursuit of these kinds of explanations in stubborn rebellion against the manifest evidence will never be able to attain true inner peace. Eclipses of the sun and of the moon could happen when they are extinguished, as we sometimes observe happening here on earth, and we already know they could be the result of some other body passing in front of them, whether the earth or one of the unobservable ones. In this way, we always want to take into account all explanations that are consistent with each other and join together all of them that are impossible. On Nature, Book 12, he adds to this that the sun is eclipsed when the moon leaves it in shadow, and the moon is eclipsed by the earth's shadow. Or else eclipse may be the result of increased distance. Diogenes, the Epicurean, says the same in his selected writings. And it must still be accepted that there is an order to the heavenly cycles of the kind we see inhering also in what happens all around us. And nothing divine should ever be brought into the discussion. The divine should be kept undisturbed and altogether blissful. If this rule is not followed, every rationale concerning the heavenly bodies will fall into useless incoherence, as has already happened to some people who can't lay hold of a workable method, so that they lapse into inanities in their belief that many distinct things are the result of one cause, rejecting what should be accepted and getting carried away into inconceivable fantasies, while refusing to make an overall survey of phenomena which they should be able to take as indicators of truth. You are not wrong. It is edited by Spencer A. Klavan with a preface, yes, and with a preface by him. So you're right, Davis. Hello, Cookie Monkey. The variable length of days and nights may result from the altering speed of slowness of the sun's movements relative to the earth as a consequence of the variable terrain it has to pass through, some of which it traverses faster and some more slowly. A phenomenon we also observe in certain terrestrial situations. Whatever we say about the heavenly bodies should also be in harmony with these principles. Those who apply only one of these explanations are fighting in vain against the evidence and have failed to consider how it is possible for humanity to arrive at such knowledge. Meteorological indicators might be the result of simple coincidence, as we sometimes see happening among animals on Earth, or of alternations and exchanges of pressure in the air. Neither of these explanations conflicts with the phenomena, but which one of these several causes really brings about each instance is not possible to discover. Clouds might be formed through the compression of air under the influence of wind, or through the entanglement of the right kind of atoms that adhere to one another and produce the necessary effect, or through the collocation of the necessary streams of air and water, or by many various other means of composition that would not be inadequate for cloud formation. Water might be produced from them when they rub together, or when they are transformed. Rain might occur when clouds are swelled by an influx of air, the more forceful of them coming from those masses that are built up enough to produce them. Thunder might come from winds that are shut up in the hollow centers of the clouds, as we see in our cisterns, or from explosions of the fire within them when tossed by winds. Or it also might occur when clouds are broken apart and dissolved, or when shards of frozen clouds break off and collide. This feels like the whole subject is conducive to a range of multiple explanations, all of them indicated by the phenomena. Lightning, too, can come about in many ways, through friction and collision between the clouds, when a tear in one of them lets slip the kind of combustible body that can produce a lightning bolt, or when the clouds are prompted by winds to emit those particles that give forth the appropriate glow, or when those particles are forced out by the friction produced in clouds either by one another or by the winds. Or else, perhaps the glow of light scattered from the stars is trapped in the clouds, then driven by their motion and by the winds so that it passes between them. Or else, the most finely strained particles of light may be filtered out through the clouds and moved through them, in which case the cloud is set on fire and produces thunderclaps as well. Or else the tension of movement and extreme pressure forces the wind to combust. Then again, it may be fissures in the clouds made by the winds that allow atoms to produce fire to escape and give off the appearance of a lightning bolt. And we could easily survey many ways it could happen, as long as we stick to the phenomena, and come up with something that conforms to them. Now, in these kinds of cloud configurations, lightning strikes before thunder, because the kind of material that produces the lightning is forced out right in the wind as the wind hits, and later on the wind trapped inside the cloud gives off the rumble of thunder. But if they both occur at once, it is because the lightning travels towards us with greater speed and the thunder follows after. Just as when we watch certain people striking each other from a distance, thunderbolts can occur when multiple wind currents meet, leading to severe compression and conflagration, or when one part of the cloud is broken off and sent falling violently into the lower regions. The fracture having occurred through the tighter picture in the adjacent region produced by the tightly packed clouds. It can also occur as a direct result of the fire trapped in the clouds being expelled, which is also a way for thunder to occur. As the fire is fed increasingly by the air and becomes more abundant, breaking out of the clouds since the constant pressure makes it impossible for it to go back to the adjacent regions. This is most often the case near mountain peaks, where thunderbolts might frequently fall. And thunderbolts can be produced in many other ways. Only let myth be dispensed with, and it will be dispensed with, if one sticks to the observed phenomena to draw inferences about what is not observed. Whirlwinds can happen through the descent of clouds into the lower region, forced into a column and carried on downwards on a heavy current of abundant wind, as the cloud is simultaneously forced sideways by an external wind. They can also be produced when the wind curves around into a circular pattern and a quantity of air pushes downward from above. Alternatively, a large gust of many winds may occur and find no lateral outlets because of the density of the surrounding air. And once the whirlwind is forced down onto the ground, it starts to produce cyclones, as dictated by the manner in which the winds produced it. And when it hits the water, it produces eddies. Earthquakes can occur when wind is shut up under the ground, and when it is disturbed among small masses of earth and moves among them, at which point it produces a vibration in the earth. The wind is either trapped from outside or from the collapse of foundations in the cavernous regions beneath the earth, which compels the trapped air to produce wind, and the transfer of motion that occurs among fallen rocks of several foundations, if they encounter sufficient resistance from critical mass of compacted earth, can in itself create an earthquake. And these kinds of motions can come about in many other ways. Winds are sometimes formed through the gradual accumulation of foreign matter seeping into the air bit by bit, and through an abundant admixture of water. The rest of the winds are formed when some of them fall into the earth's many cavities and get split up within them. Hello, 9K football. Hail is produced through powerful condensation when gaseous particles from all sides collect into drops, and through the more moderate condensation of certain fluids, causing them to come together and break apart at the same time, so that their simultaneous condensation and rupture freezes both the parts and the whole. It is not impossible that the spherical shape of hailstones is a result of their extremities having been melted down on all sides and their constant contact with other gaseous or fluid particles on all sides. Snow can be produced when a thin stream of water is poured out of the clouds through passageways of appropriate proportions, under the constant influence of extreme winds on the right kind of cloud, whereupon the rain freezes on its downward course because of the sharp drop in temperature in some regions below the clouds, or if evenly thinly dispersed clouds become frozen, snow might be expelled when clouds that are saturated with fluid get packed alongside each other. Such clouds produce hail when forced together, which happens most often in the springtime, and friction between frozen clouds and can also produce a quantity of snow, which can be produced in other ways as well. Okay, I will finish this letter. I have time. Dew is produced when the particles that can produce such moisture gather together from the air. It may also be created when such particles are carried upward, either from damp regions or from those saturated with water, where dew is most likely to occur, and then come back together, combining their moisture and returning back to the lower areas, as we also observe many similar processes in our daily experience. And frost is produced in much the same way as dew, when certain particles freeze in the presence of cold air. Ice is produced when the round atoms in water are ejected while the pointed and uneven ones are packed together, or by the accretion of those types from outside which, when driven together, freeze the water once they have displaced enough of the round types. Rainbows are produced by the projection of the sun's rays through hydrated air, or else through a particular affinity between light and air, which creates the distinctive conditions for producing the relevant colors, all at once or one by one. And when this light in turn is refracted through the neighboring air, it takes on the same colors, as we observe when its parts are illuminated. And the reason for this curved appearance is that its distance from our standpoint of observation is the same in every direction, or else the atoms in the air have taken on certain density, or those in the clouds derived from the same air, are arranged together in such a manner as to appear in this curved shape. A halo floats around the moon because air is arrayed around it all the way to its borders. Alternatively, the air lifts up the currents from the moon equally in all directions, up to the point where it deposits a cloudy ring that never completely breaks free, or else it lifts up the air around the moon in equal measure on all sides into a thick circle around it. This happens in particular areas either because of a current that forces itself from outside, or a quantity of heat that finds sufficient channels to travel in and accomplish it. Comets are a consequence either of fire gathering together among the celestial bodies at certain intervals under the right conditions, or of movement over time in the heavens themselves above us, so that such stars appear, or else at various times the bodies themselves force into our field of vision and become observable, and they disappear whenever the opposite eventualities cause them to. It happens that certain stars revolve in place, not only, as one may say, because that part of the world is fixed in place while the rest revolves around it, but also because a vortex of air surrounds it and keeps it from spinning like the rest, or else because there is no suitable fuel in the surrounding regions as there is in the place where they are observed. It could also arise from plenty of other causes if someone managed to work one out that conformed to the observable phenomena. The reason why some stars wander relative to the others which hold to their positions. The reason why some stars wander relative to others which hold their positions, if indeed that is how they move, might be because they have to by necessity, since they are set in a circular motion at the origin of the universe, so that some are carried around by the same rotational force along parallel tracks, whereas others are carried on different anomalous tracks. He's suggesting the Big Bang Theory in some ways, It is also possible that the quality of air fluctuates from region to region, so that those with regular air quality carry them along in uniform motion as they burn continuously, whereas in regions with irregular density, they exhibit the anomalous motion we observe. But those who put forward a single explanation when the phenomena invite a variety of accounts are acting deranged. They have allowed themselves to be led to inappropriate conclusions by those who put forward pointless astrological reasoning about illusory causes, pressing the divine into service and rendering it incoherent. It has sometimes happened that a particular star is observed to fall behind the others because it is traveling more slowly than the others in its proper orbit, or because it has been pressed back in the opposite direction by the same driving vortex. It may also be that some stars cover a greater distance and others cover less in the course of the same revolution. To attribute these sorts of things to one simple cause is a mark of the sort of person that wants to overawe the general public with signs and portents. Those stars which are said to fall may do so either because of the mutual friction between the stars themselves or because some parts become detached under the influence of wind, as we also suggested in regards to lightning bolts. It may also be the result of collision among the atoms that produce fire. When material in that family of atoms is produced and brings this about, so that the motion imparted by this initial impulse dictates the ensuing trajectories. It may also be that an accumulation of wind in certain foggy masses gets trapped and explodes, which then punctures the surrounding material and carries it to whatever location it dictates by the application of initial force. There are many other ways of bringing this about that do not involve mythological activity. The behavior of certain animals occasionally coincides with the indicators of weather patterns by an accidental correlation of timing, for the animals cannot impose any constraints on the weather to become stormy, nor is there any divine overseer, who observes the patterns of these animals' movements and then executes their meteorological directives. Not even a moderately fortunate life form would be afflicted by such inanities, let alone one possess a perfect happiness. So then, Pythocles, keep all these things in mind. They will keep you well protected from mythology and enable you to understand all related matters. Give yourself over to in particular to the study of causes and of the infinite, and what that whole class of things, when a human experiences and the source of truth, then to human experiences and the source of truth, and why we have reason to consider such things. A comprehensive study of these things will be the easiest way to explain more minor details. But those who are not passionately interested in such things have not understood them or reached the goal that should have been proposed of studying to begin with. And that is the end. See? I appreciate you all, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye. Be safe, readers and scholars.